Hey, welcome to another episode of the Unspoken Truths of Leadership, Living the Leadership Values. So, I guess we'll talk about the unspoken truths of leadership, the dark side, and the learnings from dealing with conflict with integrity. Today, I have the pleasure of having Tyler from
Christensen.
Christensen from across the pond in the United States, was it?
Yeah. Yep. I'm really close to Las Vegas.
Wow. So, Tyler, please tell us of what you do.
Well, I'm a school teacher, so I teach fifth grade right now, which is a new thing for me. I was a college professor for 10 years in teacher education.
For those that don't know, what age group is that?
Oh, yes. So fifth grade is 10-year-old, 11-year-olds.
Fantastic.
So that's what I do for my day job is I'm teaching in primary school or elementary school, and I've been doing that for about 4 years now and loving it.
How did you choose to go into teaching?
I have always enjoyed learning, and I think that was the big impetus for me to investigate teaching. Is when I was in college, I loved being in college, and I studied a lot of different things, and I was able to really grow my interest in a lot of areas. And so during that time, I didn't get a degree in teaching right away. My bachelor's degree was in sociology. And then when I did a master's degree, I did it in educational technology just because I was interested. During that time, I started teaching, and then I went back for my PhD so I could be a professor. And so I was just really interested in my own learning, and by extension, being able to stay in the classroom was really appealing to me, being able to share what I was learning with others.
What got you involved with the choice of teaching in that choice? Because not everyone would go, I want to be a teacher today, or yeah, I decided to just become a teacher. I mean,
You
working with kids
know, for
especially.
I understand the question, but I don't have a great answer for that. I think I just kind of evolved into it. Most teachers say they wanted to teach all their lives and they had instrumental teachers growing up and they wanted to be just like them. That wasn't the case for me. I just, as I investigated lots of other career choices, I didn't fall in love with any particular career idea. But I loved learning and I loved schooling. And so just the longer I was in school and I started finding opportunities to teach part-time on the side while I was in school, and I just loved it. And so I just kind of fell into it.
And during your time, how would you manage conflict with the classrooms, with kids, and all sorts?
Yeah, well, a lot of that depends on how old the students are that you're teaching. So when I first taught, I was still going to school, but I started teaching middle school. And I didn't know how to manage students at that time. I wasn't used to defiant teenagers. And so when things went wrong in the classroom, eh, originally it was really hard for me to deal with that. And it was very stressful. I quickly learned that I could send them to the principal's office and that would solve things in the short term, but it wouldn't solve the problem. It would just be a stopgap. And so that's where I really started investigating what are the best methods of classroom management. So when there is conflict in the classroom, we can resolve it quickly, but also make a long-term change. Over the last 20 years, as I've continued to teach, the thing that has made the biggest difference in dealing with conflict is having positive rewards at the onset. So if kids are working towards something positive and they're being positively reinforced, that preventative measure reduces conflict in a huge degree. And so I've really started incorporating a lot more verbal praise in the classroom, a lot more things that you can earn and work towards. And so then the students will really police themselves. They want to have great behavior so that as a whole class, they can learn more, they can do more activities and have more fun as a class. So it's really revolves around positive rewards.
That sounds very kind of like incentive for people in jobs as well, isn't it?
Right. Yeah. If you think you have a chance of getting a raise, you're going to work harder. And that just totally makes sense.
So how would you adapt? How did you adapt with the stress and the tension and that comes along with teaching?
Well, it's not an easy thing, especially because teachers are so underpaid and underappreciated. So when you have the hard days, every teacher thinks about quitting, at some point. And in fact, the teaching profession is one of the highest attrition rates of any career. Within the first 5 years of teaching, almost 45% of all teachers drop out of the profession, which is alarming that the number's so high, but even more so considering that most of those teachers had wanted to be teachers all their lives. They didn't do it because there were no other job opportunities. They became a teacher on purpose. And so the fact that so many teachers quit the profession, it's a testament to how difficult it can be. And so I think in those first few years, if you survive the first few years, it's developing a thick skin, having a mentality that despite the obstacles, the rewards outweigh that. And certainly I've seen that in my career that, I feel like I'm actually helping students, not just to learn content, but to live better lives, to have more meaning in their lives and more fulfillment, that they're becoming better citizens. And so those rewards outweigh the frustrations and the conflict that happens in the classroom, dealing with angry parents and so on. And so you just get used to it and find ways to work through it and work around it. But also, as you continue to work on yourself as a teacher, you get better at it. And so you have less of those struggles in the classroom because you've learned how to deal with it.
And how do you go about building relationships with students and their parents?
Yeah, that's a great question, especially when you're doing it remotely like we are right now. Kids can tell if you're interested in them. They can tell if you care. And so it's as simple as asking questions. When I first meet students, I have them fill out questionnaires and I memorize the answers. So when they come in on that first day of school, I already know their name. I know something about them. I know how many siblings they have, what they like to do. And then as the year progresses, in elementary school, in primary school, we have the luxury of being with those students all day long, every day. So we really get to know them well. And what I do is I don't just spend time in the classroom teaching them, but I really do want to get to know them. So I go to recess with my students. When they go out to play on the playground, instead of taking a break, I go out with them a lot of the time and play with them. During lunchtime, sometimes I go and join them for lunch. When they go to their specials during the day, they're going to PE or music class or art. I'll often go with them, and I'm not expected to do that. That's my preparation time. But I routinely find times throughout the year. So I'm not going to PE every week, but I'll go every 2 or 3 weeks or 4 weeks, just so I can see them in a different environment where I'm not in charge of teaching them, but I can get to know them on a more personal basis. And the goal is not to be their friend. I want to be their teacher first, but the better I know them, the easier it is to communicate expectations, the easier it is to help them with the problems that they're dealing with, that whether those be academic or personal. And so I really make a concerted effort to get to know the students. For parents, I don't try as hard. I probably should. But for parents, it's meeting with the parent-teacher conferences. It's the emails. This year, every week, I sent out a video to all my parents. So I had a weekly newsletter that would be email. But this year, in addition to that, I started a new YouTube channel so I could just talk like this to my parents each week, let them know exactly what was going on in the classroom. And that really helped with communication. Parents knew exactly what was expected of their kids. The parents that did watch those videos really appreciated having the extra little details. And so it's those little things. And I probably have a lot to learn as far as working with both parents and students, but I'm working on it.
Wow, that goes a long way to make the extra effort to make videos for parents and stuff as well.
Yeah, but it pays off. And honestly, filming the videos is simple. It's the uploading and having it, get set on YouTube and getting the links and stuff. That was the pain. But really easy to shoot a video.
When you chose to teach, in essence, you're choosing to lead.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of decisions was going through your mind when you applied for teaching, or going through the process of learning, getting a qualification even?
Yeah, well, for me, teaching has always been, a passion of mine and something that I consider my calling in life. And the reason I feel that way is not just because I'm passionate about the content. I love teaching history. I love teaching math. Those are great. At the university level, I love teaching psychology. I teach educational psychology, and I'm very passionate about that because that's what I like to study. But the reason I'm a teacher and the opportunities for leadership because of that is because I really want kids to have a better life. We have kids coming into the classroom from all different walks of life, different socioeconomic backgrounds, different nationalities and cultures. And for each of them, I want them to leave my classroom knowing that they have great potential, that they can accomplish great things, that they can make a meaningful contribution to society. And that why for me is enough to carry me through. And also, as far as leadership is concerned, because I have that why, because I'm really seeking to help these kids live better lives, it's easy for me to start new initiatives, to try new programs, to do different things that adjust to the students' needs, because I know that it will make a difference.
What got you to your why?
Some of it came, again, it kind of evolves with you as you develop as a teacher, but a lot of it was inherent right up front. That's part of the reason I became a teacher, is I wanted to make a difference. And like everyone else, I've had, in my own education, I had a lot of really crappy teachers, and I had a few exceptional ones. And those exceptional ones did change my life. They helped me live a better life. And so I wanted to pass that forward onto my students.
Have you reached out to your teachers that made a difference in your life?
Yes, I have actually. And some of them I've never been able to get a hold of again, but I've sent emails. I've reached out on social media. I regularly send thank yous to the people who have influenced me in my life. Not just my formal teachers, but other adults and mentors that I've had. I do reach out.
That's fantastic. Because I asked this because I've been contemplating about reaching out to my teachers that taught me during school and middle school and and throughout. I was just like, oh, maybe I should reach out and just see, if they're still around, and,
right,
and what they're up to or where they're at right now. And it's just always curious because these are the teachers that, like you said, made a massive difference in my life, and I want you to say thank you.
I actually had a really cool experience just recently. This spring, I was scheduled to give a TED Talk, and it was on the impact of exercise on learning and productivity. A few years ago, I lost over 100 pounds. I started running ultra marathons. And as I went through that, I started doing research on what impact my health was having on my effectiveness as a teacher, but also how we were learning in the classroom. And so I started doing all this research and getting asked to talk at different schools and to different organizations. And I was accepted for a TED Talk in San Francisco. And in preparation for that, I thought of the first person who really taught me about the value of exercise. And that was not one of my teachers, but it was a friend from high school. And I haven't talked to this friend in years and years, but he taught me so much. And so in preparation for the TED Talk, I called him up and I said, can I have permission to use your name and share this example of how you taught me the value of exercise and running? And we ended up having a very, very long conversation, catching up on things. And it was one of the most rewarding things I've done all year long, just making that phone call, finding out he's on the other side of the country now. We've moved apart, have lived different lives. But it was so rewarding to just call him up and say thank you.
And you still keep in touch now, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Awesome. When you talked about your weight loss journey, what was your choice? What was your decision then?
I don't know if I had a decision then.
What made you decide to go through that pain and what changed for you?
It was hard. I've been obese all my adult life, and finally my wife sat me down, and she doesn't nag, and she doesn't, she's just so loving and supportive. But she sat me down a few years ago and said, Tyler, I'm really worried for your health. I think if things don't change, that you're going to die really young. And we're in our 40s now, and she had reason for concern because we've had friends that have had major health problems because of their weight and because of their health. And so she sat me down, and I've tried to lose weight for years and years, and nothing worked. But seeing her earnestness, seeing how much she cared about that, and our 4 young children, she didn't want to be a single mom with our children. And so I recommitted to her that I was going to try harder. And so I started doing a lot of research and study on how I could lose weight and different things that I could incorporate into my diet. And I tried things out, and a lot of them failed. So over the first 6 months, I actually gained a few more pounds. But I kept trying and I kept trying and kept trying. And eventually I found, what worked for my body. I learned how to listen to my body. I did increase the exercise I was doing, and the weight just started to come off. And I lost 100 pounds in a year. And then since that time, I've continued to get healthier. Last year I gained about 30 pounds, but it was all muscle. I lost another 5 pounds of fat and gained a bunch of muscle. So I'm still learning, and it's a work in progress, but it's mostly thanks to my wife and how much she cares about me.
Wow, that's fantastic. I can relate to this because I had the same same process about 2 years ago,
Oh,
where I
same time
lost.
then.
Yeah,
Yeah.
about 2 years ago, I lost. I was about, well, for us as stones, I don't know what that is in pounds, but
Right.
I lost about 10, 10 kilos, 15, 20 kilos, I think. I don't know
Okay.
what that is for pounds or stones. But yeah, I had the same process. Was like, I kept trying to lose weight for years, and I've
Mm-hmm.
been with my fiance for about 10 years. And there was that period where I was like, kept trying, but I wasn't shifting. But then
Right.
there was just this one time where I was like, you know, maybe I just switch up something else and just change the diet and then change the weights and then yeah. So I can relate to that. It's just I was just intrigued.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. It's always amazing when you have someone such support as well
Of
from
course.
someone
Yeah.
that you love. When you go through your teaching with your students and knowing that
Mm-hmm.
you're making a difference in their lives, what what kind of fulfillment and do you get? I mean, it's different for everyone, but I'm just intrigued. What is it for you?
Yeah, well, honestly, so it is very fulfilling to be a teacher and even more so to be a father and to teach my own children and take those lessons from the classroom and bring it home. Um, I'm going to talk a little bit more about being a father right now because the cool thing about being a dad is you teach the lessons and then you see the long-term impact. You can't see that with your students. You can't see what I did this year, how that's affecting them 5 years from now, 10 years from now. But as a parent, you definitely do see that. And you see that the lessons that I taught a few years ago, now they're incorporating that. And I love seeing my oldest right now is 14. And then I have a 12-year-old, a 9-year-old, and a 6-year-old. And the 14-year-old, he's doing things now that we talked about years and years ago and becoming the kind of man I want him to be. And it's so inspiring to me to see that the little things that we've done here in the home have had a long-term impact. And I'm hopeful that in the classroom, I'm having that same kind of impact. I'm not going to see the results because they're going to move on with their lives and go to different places. But I'm hopeful that the little lessons that we teach in the classroom, they'll have a long-term impact. And so that's where I'm most fulfilled is in their potential and what they can do. But I don't always see the results of that.
I think being a parent is the most um, toughest leadership role that you can do because
It is.
you are the role model that they see and learn from. You know, everything you say, everything you do, they're watching.
Yeah. But on the flip side of that, I think being a parent is also the most rewarding leadership role and has the potential for so much learning too. My kids now lead out in so many areas where I want to be more like them. They're my heroes. And so I'm learning from them just as they're learning from me.
They show you the fears that they don't have, right? That you have.
Right.
And it's just like recalling that I used to be like that, but now why am I so afraid now compared to their age? It's always
Yep.
fascinating to watch. So let's talk about what you do outside of school because you mentioned that you do podcasts and shows and other things that
Hmm.
you got going on. So what's that involved?
Yeah, one of the great blessings of being a teacher is that over the summertime, you have a more flexible schedule. Now,
Mm.
I think that teachers don't work over the summer. That's kind of a myth. Teachers definitely work over the summer, whether through a part-time job to pay the bills or in preparing for the fall when they go back to school. I'm still going to my school once or twice a week, preparing and planning and doing things. But I also have a lot more flexibility during the summer. So during that time, I've developed a lot of skills over the last few years. I do website design, and I've been fortunate enough to design for several celebrities, a professional basketball player, a few actors and models. So I do that on the side to make a little bit of money. I do product reviews, so people will send me products and I'll make a video or shoot some Instagram pictures, and they'll often pay me. I've made several $1,000s posting those to different things, and then also make money through the affiliate links when people click on them. So that's a nice little side income that I make. I'm a sports writer, so I'm a recruiting analyst for American football. And I have a national recruiting service that I give to students where I write articles about how to be a good football player. And I write for the newspaper. They have me do football recruiting updates. And so that keeps me busy on the side. That one doesn't make much money, but it's just really fun. Plus, I get media passes to the football game, so that's really cool. So I'm doing all sorts of things. I have a YouTube channel where I talk about my health, and my newest project is one that grew out of COVID, was I created a YouTube channel and a podcast called Virtual School Assembly, where I interview celebrities and professional athletes and have them share inspirational messages with my students and with students all over the world. So that's what's keeping me busy right now. I have like 30 interviews scheduled in the next week. So I'm doing it full time right now. But it's been so fulfilling to reach out to really influential people and have them share messages of hope with my students. So I've loved doing that, and I'm fortunate to have the skills that I can put that together.
Wow, that's amazing. What got you into doing that? Like, what made you think, oh, I'm going to just reach out to celebrities and interview them?
Well, I think it grew out of the web design. So I started doing websites several years ago, and I reached out to celebrities just because I wanted to increase my brand. I wanted to up my profile, and by having a few celebrity clients, it makes you seem more legit. And so I reached out to celebrities at that time and was fortunate enough to have a few come back to me, and I did their websites for free just to improve my brand. But that started a relationship with a few people in Hollywood and a few athletes. So when I decided to do this new YouTube channel, I already had some connections within those industries and decided that that's who students most wanted to hear from anyways. So I went full bore in LinkedIn and other social media platforms to connect with as many as possible, let them know what I was doing and how they could be involved. And it's just snowballed. Just in the last week, I've interviewed 8 people from the NFL, a few professional rugby players, a few professional soccer players. And it's just snowballing where it's getting easier and easier to make those connections because I've made previous connections. So it's kind of just grown with me.
And have you managed to get kind of tips and positive, I guess, habits that they go through that you've implemented into your life?
Absolutely. I mean, that's one of the cool things about running this channel is I'm asking for advice on behalf of my students. What should students be doing during this time to help with their mental health, their physical health? What would encourage them to develop new skills and new talents? And I'm absolutely incorporating all that advice into my own life. This has been one of the most productive and happiest summers of my life because I'm getting these messages and I'm doing those things. So we've been, like at home, we've been able to complete tons of projects. I'm wrapping up another book. I've written several books, but I'm moving forward with that. And I've started thinking about how I can do other things that have been recommended on my own show. So I'm absolutely taking their advice and making the most of it.
What kind of high performance habits do they have that the average students don't use, or the average people don't use?
I think the biggest one is that they don't quit. I think a lot of people have good habits in short spurts. So we'll do really good things. We'll maybe start waking up a little earlier, and we'll do that for a few weeks or even a few months. But the high performers do that for years. They establish good routines and then they consistently work at those routines and they don't quit. And so when they have setbacks, all these performers, whether it be people in Hollywood or professional athletes or business owners, they've had lots of failures, more failures than most people have. But they've worked through those and learned through those so that the next time it works better. And so I think that's really the biggest thing is they don't quit, they keep moving forward. And when they have failures, they don't let that deter them from trying new things and continuing.
And have you had impact, I guess, for when you was a child, and anything that changed the way you manage yourself?
I don't know if I understand that question. Can you say it again?
Is there anything that happened in your experience when you was a child that influenced your direction of what you do today?
Oh, absolutely. I think the biggest thing is I had a very unremarkable childhood. I was very average at a lot of things. And I was always frustrated by that. I wanted to be the best at something. I wanted to make the team. I wanted to be elected to a position. And I had so many failures. And then as I've grown older, I've realized that I've continued to have opportunities, and most adults don't take advantage of opportunities. So now it's way easier to be really good at something. When I ran a 50-mile ultra marathon a few months ago, it was because I was the person that entered. Not very many people run 50 miles. And so now it's the things that I struggled with as a child. Just by continuing to work hard and doing new things, I'm having way more success as an adult. And so I'm grateful for a supportive family where I felt like I could try things, where I could fail. And I got really good at failing. But I think that set a good pattern for the rest of my life, that I'm willing to try new things and to persist.
And you also you do speaking as well. You're a
Mm-hmm.
professor. You do a lot of speaking. What was the challenge for you when you started speaking in public?
I love speaking. It's very energizing for me. I think most teachers probably feel that way, that it's a fun thing to do. For me, the big thing was I didn't realize you could get paid to speak. I'd always just gone to conferences and things like that. And when I found out that I could get paid to speak and that people really would, pay for you to fly out and to do things, that's where I was like, oh, I need to figure out how to do this. And I'm still in that process. I'm learning, how to land speaking engagements and get the best kind of speaking engagements for the message that I have. And so I'm continually learning about the speaking profession and the business, because it's more business than it is speaking. The speaking's the fun, the easy stuff. It's the stuff that you're on stage for a while that really gives you a shot of adrenaline, and it's awesome. The business side of speaking is a lot more difficult. And so I'm still learning the ins and outs of the speaking business. And it's been a fun journey. It's slower growth than I want. I'd love to be on 100 stages this year sharing my message. But that's just not the reality right now. And so I'm learning as I go along.
Have you been doing virtual conferences or virtual speaking gigs?
During this time, I decided to go all in on virtual school assembly to provide value for my students. It's actually cost me quite a bit of money. So instead of making money right now, I'm putting a lot of money into it. And all the money I'd be making from writing books and doing speaking engagements, doing virtual speaking engagements, I've said no to all those things because I want to provide this resource to my students. So right now, I'm not doing any of that. I have had a few requests to do so, but I've just been too busy with my platform and growing that up for my students. Will I do virtual engagements in the future? I hope so. I think that virtual engagements are here to stay. They don't take the place of face to face. I think there'll always be a place for that. But I like being able to hop, just like we are right now. I feel like I can provide value in this kind of situation, and so I want to keep doing those kinds of things.
And you talked about psychology as well. What got you into psychology?
Again, it's because I love to learn. And so that was just a natural outcropping, is to study how the brain works. And so I'm a learning scientist. I did my graduate studies in how the brain works, how we make meaningful connections. And I wanted to know how to do that so I could be a better teacher. If I know how the brain works, how we retrieve information, how we have long-term memory, then I can be a better teacher to my students. So I did it so I could be a better teacher.
And was there a level of self-awareness you go into psychology as well? There's the scientific side of self-awareness. And
Say that again. I don't.
So the self-awareness of psychology, or the psychology of self-awareness even, but the deep side, the quantum physics and how the emotions work.
Yeah, so I've done a lot of study on metacognition, thinking about thinking and reflection. In fact, my doctoral dissertation is about reflecting with other people, so doing it in a social situation. And so I spent a lot of time thinking about how that works and the emotions and the different things that are tied up with our psychology. Just because it interests me, I don't do as much research in that area anymore. Now that I'm not a professor, I don't have to publish academic papers. I still do from time to time. I have some publications coming out this year, but I don't have that same pressure to do academic research and publications. And so I probably don't spend as much time thinking about that now as I did when I was in graduate school.
But has knowing the behavior patterns of how people behave and how the brain works, has that helped you in just establishing connections and working with
Oh, yeah,
students?
for sure. And that's a hard thing for teachers. When you go to school, your professors will say, these are the best research practices. This is what you should do in the classroom. But then when you do your student teaching and things like that, the teachers will say, forget everything you learned in school. This is what you need to do to survive. This is what you need to do to just make it. And I don't think that's the best approach. I think we should take those best practices that we learned through the research. I think we should take the things that have been proven to work and incorporate as much of that as we can into our classroom. Now, it is hard because a lot of teaching is about survival. It's about getting through the day and helping your students the best way you can. And so there has to be some sort of compromise there. but I try to use as much of the best practices as I can. In fact, I'm even the founder of a journal. It's called the Journal on Best Teaching Practices. It's an academic journal that I founded and was the editor of for several years. And I still read those articles that were submitted to my journal because I want to be the best teacher I can be.
Wow, it's fascinating how you managed to find your calling in teaching. I'm just so fascinated with how you got to where you are with it, and the amount of stuff that you're making as well on the side with the podcasts, the and all your platforms, your virtual platforms, and using the technology to help leverage your connections and relationships.
Yeah, it's just teaching in a different way with a different audience. Everything I do is about teaching and sharing. And so I've loved that we have these digital platforms that we can use, because that's how I can lead. That's how I can share what I've learned with others. And I'm not getting rich or famous from it, but I have a very fulfilled life. I'm very happy because I'm doing what I love.
The world is it's becoming a better place because of your teaching. I know
Thank you.
that for sure. I can guarantee that. And it's because you're selfless teaching, and the way you just keep giving, like non-stop giving. I can just sense it and feel it, and your passion just comes through so much with what you do. How did you establish those values in terms of compassion and giving and
Yeah, I think honestly, I wish I could take credit and say I'm just a good person, but it's probably because I have an angel mother and an amazing father, and they raised me in an environment where service was way more important than other things, being able to give back and to help others. So I owe most of who I am to my parents, and now to my wife and my children. They're the same way. And so I've just been fortunate to be surrounded by amazing people all my life.
wow, that's awesome. I always find it fascinating how people get to where they are with the surroundings.
Right.
When you go through your teaching and managing your stress levels, what kind of habits do you have put in place for your routines? I'm quite fascinating.
Yeah, well, especially lately, one of the best things that I've incorporated into my life is more exercise. And so when I wake up every day, it's 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups, 100 jumping jacks, 100 squats just to start the day. And then I incorporate micro movements throughout the day. So as a teacher, me and my students, we dance in class. In fact, my next book that's coming out is Dancing in the Classroom. And it's because throughout the day, we're breaking up the day and we're playing games. We're being active in the classroom. We're dancing. We're doing things like push-ups and sit-ups just in the middle to give us a break and to activate our brains, because research has actually shown by getting more blood to your brain and more oxygen to your brain, you're going to learn better and you're going to have better retention of the information. So it actually saves us more time in the long run. I don't have to spend as much time teaching because the retention is better. So we play a lot at school. We have a lot of fun together, and I incorporate that through my day. Here at home, I'm doing the same thing. So in the morning, I'll go for a jog and I'll come back and I'll hit the weights for a while. But then throughout the day, I'm still lifting weights, every few hours, or doing some jumping jacks or things. And that really has made a huge difference in my life. It's helped me be more awake and more alert. So I have more energy to get more done during the day. And I work really hard. I'm still waking up around 4:30 or 5 o'clock most mornings. And I'm taking advantage of those early morning hours to write my books and to do the things I want to do. But it's really being healthy has made a huge difference. Eating the right kinds of foods and having exercise, it's made me much more productive. And I'm sure you've seen that with your weight loss journey too, that you're getting a lot more done.
Yeah, absolutely. The productivity and energy levels has just been through the roof. That I just feel like I'm just getting so much more done.
Yeah.
Um, it was such a undervalued asset. They kind of take for granted
Hmm.
previously. It's yeah. I just found out. I was like, wait, why didn't I do this sooner?
Right. Yeah, I feel the same way.
But it's always yeah, it's a learning curve, like you say. It's something that we just have to go through in our own journeys. So when you go through approaching, working with all these different leaders, have you found that what kind of things that they go through in terms of managing their stress and their tensions and concerns that they have? Everyone's just working with their mental health and stress and tension.
Yeah, I have found that exercise is a commonality. Of course, I'm interviewing a lot of professional athletes, so of course they're exercising. But the high producers in other areas too, the business owners and things, a few commonalities I found is the importance of sleep, getting enough sleep, exercising. A lot of really productive people are early risers, so I don't know the correlation there, but a lot of people wake up early and get a lot done in the morning. So I've seen that with great leaders. And then the kinds of leaders that are coming on my show, Virtual School Assembly, they're people who share my vision and my mission of giving back and helping youth. And so one of the cool things I've seen from those leaders is a commitment to serving, to that servant leadership and helping out. So I've really loved that as I've talked to them and been inspired by them. It's because they genuinely want to help our youth have a better life.
Yeah, I found that when I've recently become a board trustee or board member for a charity, and in that charity we help kids learn through play.
Mm-hmm.
So through play activities, crafting, and arts and craft, and just being creative. And it's just for me it was creating leaders of the future.
Right.
But not from the frontline way, but there's more of the strategic way as being more the, working with the stakeholders and the team behind the scenes is ensuring that those facilities are around for the children. So I really get the whole servant leadership and creating better leaders for the future.
Yeah.
So how else would people get connected with you if they were to find what you do and get in contact with you?
Yeah. Well, obviously, I have a lot of different things going on. So for me, it's easiest just to go to my hub, which is my personal website, tylerchristensen.com. And Christensen is spelled Ensen. And so that's the best place. I'll connect you to my social media and all the different things that I'm working on, the books I'm writing, stuff like that.
And if you was to give advice for those that's really looking to serve and become a better leader, a better teacher, what kind of advice would you recommend or give?
Yeah, I think there's really two things that are essential if you want to be a great leader. Is one, you have to learn how to listen and be curious and find out what people's needs are. And then you have to have a commitment to being a learner, being a lifelong learner and being curious. So I think if you're asking the right questions and learning the right things, then you're going to find the right ways to serve.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Tyler, for your time. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's been my pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you. Speak soon.
Mm-hmm.